The Caroline Town. Thank you. And so I'll open the meeting with a pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so tonight we actually have two meetings. The first meeting is the public hearing on the video conferencing local law that we're considering tonight. And so we'll be taking public comment from anybody that wishes to address us about this local law. Just a brief explanation. So prior to COVID, the open meetings law allowed board members of public bodies to attend remotely if they published their location and allowed the public to attend to observe them there. And so then with the emergency order that provided an exemption to that under the COVID emergency, public bodies were allowed to meet entirely remotely. So then a couple months ago, Governor Hochul, anticipating that this provision will expire soon, provided a new provision to open meetings law that allows municipalities, public bodies to adopt a policy, adopt a local law and a policy to allow remote attendance under extraordinary circumstances by members of public bodies to public meetings. The stipulation is that a quorum of the body, so in the case of a 5-member town board, a quorum is 3 of those members. A quorum of the public body must be present at a physical location, at one or more physical locations to which the public is allowed to attend. So that part is not too different from what it was before. For members beyond that have extraordinary circumstances, which are defined in our policy, and they are comparable to the circumstances that we experienced under the COVID emergency. Those members may attend remotely without allowing the public to attend their place of their location where they are attending from. So that's a summary of the history of this, and excuse me, let me get rid of that. So that's a summary of the history of this and why we're considering this local law and policy tonight. So with that, I will open the public hearing to allow comments not to exceed 3 minutes from people who have any input to provide about this.
Would you say once again what that you could, if you were remotely joining the meeting, you had to have the availability for the public to go to that site?
That's correct.
And that's being rescinded in this law?
No. So yes, it's being rescinded for the members beyond that. If for the quorum, they have to be present at a physical location where the meeting's occurring or one or more physical locations. This is recognizing that meetings now can occur by video conference. So members can be at more than one location attending a meeting.
But the address thing is pre-COVID. Then the emergency authorization said you no longer had to disclose your address, right?
Okay.
Is that what you're asking?
That's right. So now this is sort of not midway, but it's part. So for members who have extraordinary circumstances to deal with, who will not contribute to the quorum of the meeting, they may attend remotely without allowing the public, without publishing their location and allowing the public to attend. So, yes,
So they're not part of the quorum,
they're not part of the quorum.
so they're not able to vote?
No, that's not, that's the only part that they don't contribute to the quorum, but they're allowed to participate and they're allowed to vote.
I don't think we'll-
That's the, well, that's a. Question in the back, yes,
My name is Janet.
hi Janet, yeah,
I think I read, and I'm not sure if I'm correct, but these circumstances can only be temporary circumstances, not continuous. Did I read that? Like special circumstances for that.
yes, that's,
And you can
we,
vote.
yeah, and we have those extraordinary circumstances defined in our policy,
But
that's,
how I read it was, it's not ongoing, it's like for special circumstances from time to time, but not ongoing, like, not continuous. Did I read that right?
well, yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then I also read that you can vote this in, but you can change it at any time or add to it, correct?
Well, we could, yes, we could change the policy. We absolutely could change the policy, but in the stipulation in the local law that came from the state is that it needs to be allowed by extraordinary circumstances.
And if there was another emergency that was going on, when the state put another thing out like they did for this, I mean, so it
That's
could
right,
go back on like it was without it there being a town law for it.
that's correct. That's all correct, yes.
Todd Schmidt, I guess I have more of a question regarding the policy. There's a town law that refers to the local policy that defines the extraordinary circumstances that were just mentioned, which is fine. The town law is specific about allowing video conferencing from locations not accessible to the public, which is fine, like your residence or something, right, for a given reason. What I don't understand is in the policy, section A, part B, you actually have a note in there, the physical location of any location where members are attending virtually and the public may attend shall be posted to the town board and the agenda and all that sort of stuff. So why is there a policy provision that allows for something that's not stipulated in the local law? I guess that's confusing.
So that policy is basically just reinforcing open meetings law that for members who are contributing to quorum and for which the location is known, that needs to be published with the announcement of the meeting. Yeah, Pete.
I've got a statement, not a question. May I go now or?
Yeah,
Are we considering this the hearing at this moment?
this is a hearing,
Okay, so I just want to be clear, like, people who are speaking, what is the process?
right, okay, yeah, so I did, oh, thank you. So for the public hearing part, which is what this is, but I am glad we had the Q&A because I wanted to clarify if people have more questions, I can field those before we go into any statements that people wish to make or whatever. So, and not seeing that, then Pete, if you would, yeah, thank you.
Up here so they can see me out there in television land. The problem is one of trust. I mean, I don't see anything prima facie bad about this proposed law, but the problem is it's trust. And it appears that this law is going to be passed to benefit Tim Murray, who hasn't been to a meeting, I think, since March or April. He did chair one when you were away. That was early in the spring when they first opened up publicly. I don't recall him being in here since. And then back to Janet's question about, you know, the ongoingness of this. I mean, in the strictest sense, saying it's not ongoing would mean that stated reasons would have to be offered every time that a member were physically absent, but still legally present. In the loosest sense, it would mean that member could issue his reason and it would be until he decide to change his mind, or maybe the policy is somewhere in between. I didn't hear an answer to just how specific that is. But back to this question of trust, though. I mean, we wouldn't be having this argument unless there was so much bad feeling between so many members of the public and at least some of the members of the town board, and this just exacerbates it. And if we were in a trusting environment, I think this would be a no-brainer. I mean, all things being equal, if somebody is sick or somehow indisposed, but still wants to participate as more than a spectator, I think that's reasonable. What I don't think is reasonable is using this as an excuse to validate Tim's continued behavior in his absences. So, that's okay.
Thank you. Any other, thank you, comments?
Go ahead.
I'm actually quick. I guess I'm more of a pragmatist. And how far down this rabbit hole are we going to go in this town? If you run for elected office in a town, that means you want to serve the public. The mandate is of, for, and by the people. That's you and I. And if you don't want to come and mingle and have conversations and facial expressions and body language, and you want to stay someplace else like Tim Murray does and others, then you shouldn't be here. You should resign.
Thank you, Mr. Quick. So. Next.
I would just like to say
Would you
that
like to stand over here, please?
I would just like to say that I encountered Mr. Murray on Sunday at the chicken barbecue. I didn't know it was him. I had no idea that the person that was yelling at me out this car window was actually Tim Murray, because I had never seen him except for 20 years ago. So, and he had no mask and he was not afraid. And he spoke within an inch of another person. And I would just like to say that if this law is something that has to do with him, that we should think about it. You should think about it, because he was unmasked, unafraid, but I didn't know who my council person was. No idea, just someone yelling at me out of the window. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
I witnessed everything she just said. I witnessed everything you just said.
Okay, so
That's all I'm just gonna say.
I would just, Bruce Murray would like to make a
Yeah,
statement.
this is about the law.
Yep, thank you. That's what this is about.
We'll still get privilege of the floor later.
That's right.
Okay. Law, the new law. I came to a meeting Wednesday, June 1st to listen about the introduction of the law. The introduction. I asked at the time, and Mark, you said that there would be certain aspects of the law that would pertain just to Caroline, or you would write like laws or how it would be followed, or what would regulate how we could miss meetings. It's kind of what you said. But anyway, so I went a little bit further. Wednesday the 1st was the meeting to introduce the law. So I followed this, and on May 27th, you wrote a letter to the Ithaca Journal to publish the notice to schedule a June 1st affidavit to mail the date to publish the public hearing today, on the 8th. Your letter said, please post the following in legal and section of the Ithaca Journal on the very next possible day for one day only. Any questions, please? A public hearing on a local law authorizing the town public bodies to use video conferencing technology to participate in a public meeting will be held on June 8th at 7 p.m. in Zoom teleconferencing community. That came out on the 1st, that day before the meeting to introduce the law. To me, I don't know how or why you would do that without going over the law with the town board to see if it was gonna go any further at all. Then you did put the policy of our law in the website, and that wasn't published until June 6th, which was 2 days ago. And now you're gonna vote on it when the public knew nothing about what the policy was until 2 days ago. I believe the law is like 5 days, you have to be published ahead of time, and the local people should have a chance to know what the hell the law is before it's voted in. And I don't understand how or why you could advertise it before it was ever brought in front of the town board to even realize that this possibly could be a law we're gonna talk about and vote. So, to me, you don't have the 5 days, because it was just put into the website, the 6th, today's the 8th, that's 2 days. So the public hasn't had any time to digest what this is, what the policy is, and everything else, to be able to even consider or think that this should be something that we should have. So I would consider that possibly you should think of tabling this for a while, and then let the public know what's going on, and let the board discuss it more.
Thank you, Bruce.
I just wanna say, if you can whip something up
So-
that quick, I don't wanna stand. Then why can't you whip something up to do an ambulance, cell phone service, or high-speed internet that fast? Something we've asked for numerous times.
Thank you. Todd?
Sorry, my question before I thought was with the public hearing, so, but you've heard that question about the policy, just to be clear, there's the law and there's policy, are two
Correct.
separate things, the timing of which for legal postings vary as far as the policy and the law. Now, whether the provision, the timing with respect that Bruce talked about, it's for you to decide.
I'll address that.
But I would just like to say, absent consideration, the law itself, as I read it, and the policy has nothing to do with a particular board member. It has to do with advancing the ability of participation by elected officials in the public body when they can't be there in person. The policy itself defines what those circumstances are. And so as written, has nothing to do with, I'm not saying anything about the other council person. But the law is in.
I'm in.
Thank you, Todd.
Mary Alice.
Pardon?
Mary Alice has her hand up.
Oh, okay, has she had it up for a while?
Yep.
Okay, come to you next, Tony. So, Mary Alice Kobler. Can you unmute her, Jesse?
Go away, not with me. Hi, I'm not very able to come to town meetings, and I really want to commend you for having the teleconferencing option, or I would be unconnected, and I don't have great reception. But I've been able to follow what's going on, even though I don't feel that connected, because of your teleconferencing. And so I really want that to continue. And I commend you on your efforts in these very, very difficult times to try to keep us connected. So thank you.
Thanks, Mary Alice. And then Tony.
I agree with RC and Pete. I think it's poor timing, considering the fact that Tim Murray can't make meetings and hasn't been here in long enough, so some people don't even know who he is. Don't turn me off. Can't mute me, I'm not on it. So, you know, I've been on a state board for over 12 years now, and I think I could count on one hand how many times I've missed a meeting. I take it seriously. It's important to be at the meeting, but I think right along with what Pete says, that I feel the same way, that this looks like it's to protect a board member that doesn't make these. And I just think it's poor timing right now. If he was here, and I also agree that it's important to maybe have this so that if somebody, you can't make it because you're sick or whatever, that you can attend. I like the idea, but I don't feel good about the fact that it feels like it's to protect somebody that doesn't show up here.
Okay,
So I don't like the idea right now. That's it. Thank you.
thanks, Tony. Andrew?
So what I'm gonna say is basically a reiteration of what this has been said a bunch of times, but further propose a solution is right. This law should be a good thing, but it is being made about Tim. The solution to that is honest, open discourse about like what this is actually about and how you're going to address that issue, which Catherine started to do at the last meeting, thank you, but has not been finished. So like, there you go, we have the issue, the discourse to how you're going to resolve both having this law, which is a good thing, and deal with that issue, please.
Does anyone else want to speak to the law? John?
Kathy Mix. I just want to add to what's been said tonight, and I think the really big thing that we need to consider, and I'm all for making accommodations for extenuating circumstances when people can't be here for emergencies, as I am dealing with that as well. However, when you have somebody that isn't present as a town councilman who is supposed to be speaking for the people, that person needs to mingle with the people and know what the concerns and be able to address them personally and not behind a computer. You don't get the same senses that you would. It's like email conversations. You don't get the tone of somebody's voice. You don't get the body language if the camera is not panning directly to you. So I think it's important that as a town council person, you should be mingling with the people and know what the people are all about. Thank you.
John, did you also want to speak?
Yeah, so I've actually spoken about this many times at these meetings, that I don't think it's right that Tim is at home for these meetings. And a lot of it's just about what Kathy just said. You will never, ever see the emotion in someone sitting there as you will here. And for the history of this country, elected officials have faced the public and answered questions and met people. This isn't right. And I agree with a lot of what people have said in here. I disagree that it's a good thing to put in long-term and it's not just a timing thing. I think it's a horrible timing. I mean, there's absolutely no trust right now. And to push it through right now is nuts. But I also agree that it's probably not a good thing long-term because you will never get that personal interaction. This country is built on people working with their elected officials, and that's not happening when somebody's sitting behind their desk at home. It's not the same. And I get it, if there's an extenuating circumstance, you put in a moratorium that he can be home for a week, reschedule a meeting, change something to accommodate. I'm sorry, there is no meeting this week. We're gonna move it till next Tuesday. One of our important board members can't be here, you know, but when it's, I hope it's not a health issue. Maybe it's a choice, but whatever it is, he's not doing his job that we elected him for by sitting there. We elected him to be here and face us. And sometimes that hurts. You've all been beat up a little bit by us. I get it. But to hide behind the computer, and I'm sorry to say it that way, but that's how I feel. And I just don't think that putting this in is a long-term solution. I think that if there's an issue and you have to delay something a couple weeks, you do it. But you definitely don't push it through now. And I disagree wholeheartedly that it's a good thing to have. I get it, technology has changed, but working with the people has not changed. And it needs to remain an important part of running a town board or bigger government. It's just not right. And if somebody can't do it, by golly, they should recuse themselves and step away, because it's the job we elected them to do. That chair should have Tim Murray in it. My opinion. Thanks for listening.
Anyone else? Oh, okay. Hannah Wiley?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, guys. I guess I've got to agree with a lot of this. I do think that Zoom is good for some, I mean, you know, for some extent, you know, like it's great that some of us can stay at home and like I'm watching my baby, but I can still chime in. That's awesome. But I really don't think it's right that, you know, that this is very, very poor timing with the behavior of one board member not coming to meetings. And like, you know, a lot of other people have said, body language really does matter a lot. And there is no trust right now. I think this doesn't look very good. And I don't think it's good timing. And I guess that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Hannah.
Yep, thanks.
And do you want to speak? Yeah.
Tanya Van Camp, sorry I was a little late. I guess the way I perceive this, and I obviously missed people's comments, and apologize for coming late, is that the ability to stay home and attend meetings via Zoom is actually a privilege. There's a lot of people in our community that don't have access to internet, that don't have broadband, or they have very poor dial-up. And in order for Tim to be able to sit at home and not have to come in person is a privilege that we're not actually recognizing. The broader community doesn't have that privilege. And a lot of those people that don't have the privilege of utilizing the internet to attend a board meeting, those are the people who are also really busy working multiple jobs. They don't have time to come to these things. They're too busy, but they would like to know what's going on. So I think as a town, we should address the issue of broadband like Dryden is, and possibly bringing that into our community at whole. If we're going to introduce this as a law for our town, then it should be accessible to everybody in this town.
Thank you. Anyone else? John, you wish to speak again?
Yeah, I just do a quick second. I'm not sure the woman's name that spoke on Zoom a moment ago, but I just wanted to say that I do fully agree with her that I think you guys have done a really nice job getting the video conferencing for people to stay home. I just don't think it's the place of a board member to stay home. So I'm not against having this. I just wanted to clarify that. I think that's nice.
Thank you. And I did want to point out that that's what this is about. This isn't about, I mean, since we put in the video conferencing facilities, and our intention going forward is to keep the hybrid meeting structure so people can attend. This local law is not addressing that at all. It's about public officials being able to attend the meeting under extraordinary circumstances. The law is structured and is mindful of public bodies meeting in person where people can observe them. So quorum needs to be present. Anyone not attending, it would have to be under the extraordinary circumstances defined by the policy. So
Will we see Tim Murray in the future?
you're out of order. So that's not what this is about. This is not about Tim Murray. This is about this local law and policy.
Is there a, like if you pass that and someone had extended circumstances, is there a limit to that? Is it, write that in that law that like, okay, you're allowed this month, the meeting of the month or whatever, is there a limit to that? Or, to be able to attend it virtually? Or does the law state in there somewhere that like you're, okay, you can miss 2 meetings, but that's it?
No, there's no limit like that in the law or the policy.
It seems to me it feels a bit useless if you have to have a quorum here. The quorum votes to have somebody out, like I said, for me being on a board.
But he's saying that they would be able to vote.
I know, and I don't think they should. Because you have your quorum, they're not necessary. Your quorum is here, so they're not necessary. And that, you know, and for the board that I'm on, if we don't have a quorum, we may have a meeting, if we don't have a quorum, we don't vote on the resolutions. You can't. You know, as was stated, I don't, it was John, you know, I think you can probably get along without this law. You know what I mean? And again, it's poor timing right now, but.
It doesn't say in there in what you have on the website that it is for a certain period of time, basically not to be abused. I mean, I read something on that
So I think what you're thinking of, Janet, maybe is in the policy that we will be considering. There's the final is the effective and termination dates. Is that what you read? So
no, I know that
This
I know that this has to be passed because tomorrow is the deadline, right? Right, so it has to be passed today if you want to make it law. But I read someplace what you had online about it. It's a temporary thing for a board member or a member of the public to be able to do
that's correct.
this,
That's correct.
It's not like every single meeting for 6 months or.
That's correct. I mean,
There's a time period.
Well,
That's what I'm.
if they had those extraordinary circumstances persisting, which could happen with a
Right.
health issue, then you can't define for any one person how long that time would be, but it's not intended to be.
That's when they should step aside.
So
So long they get rid of me. It's very easily that as a worker, if I go to work and say I'm out on disability, for something, like my job and the state only allows me to have disability for so long, and wouldn't this be kind of the same idea, like you're out of service for so long? I don't know if you board members are paid, I don't know local government that well and all the workings of it. But if you guys are paid, if this is not a volunteer thing, I would think that there would be some sort of, yeah, there's a limit. I mean, you know, like I said, I can only be disabled for 6 months before New York State says you no longer get your Social Security disability. Same with unemployment. I'm only allowed unemployment for so long before I lose my job, I lose my standing in my company. That's my understanding of life.
We just need to understand what the meaning of that is. I mean.
okay, so
questions-
I do want to keep this. So this is not, in my view, not comparable to that. This is to allow a board member who has extraordinary circumstances to be able to participate in the meeting. So
I think we expect restrictions. What are these questions about? There's got to be a restriction on how long, what are the restrictions?
Or recourse.
So
And when does extraordinary become ordinary?
so
Sorry, that's.
John has his hand up.
Yeah, I say that this is absolutely the same situation. If you can't make it to work after a period of time, in any other job in the world, eventually you're done. And I also would like to hear what public arguments have been brought forward in favor of this. I haven't heard one. Have you gotten letters? Can we read one, hear one?
Can I guess it's an appropriate time, I mean,
Yeah, you may.
so I have a couple things to say. One is that, I mean, you all are giving Tim Murray a lot of power, is what I'm noticing. I mean, and that's everyone's choice, but I'm just noticing that a choice is being made about making this law about Tim, and it's not about Tim. And I said that last week, and I'm repeating it again, but just to reiterate that this is not about one person. And it is totally fine, and I'm really not judging what is happening, I'm just observing it. And I just thought it'd be worth noting that that is what this conversation is becoming. I hear this point for sure about like, what does Zoom participation mean? You know, like, so is Zoom participation considered being out of service? And if it is, then like, that's a conversation that like needs to be had, right? But if the belief is that Zoom participation is equivalent, right? And for access issues, we need to be considering these things equivalent, then it's not a matter of it being out of service. But I wanted to make that point because I think it's so important to recognize, like, when we think about work, all of us, like, what are our requirements for like being at work and showing up at work and doing our job? So I want to like really like recognize that. So if I zoom out from this, like, I'm not thinking, respectfully, Tim, I'm not thinking about you in this law. Like, I'm not thinking about you at all. Like, this isn't about you. And so for me, and so when I think about personal interaction being like highly valued, like that's what we're all saying, it's valuable, like we want the emotion and we want to like have that. I agree with that, but it also brings up an issue of accommodation by other means and what a public official needs to be able to do. Like, do we think a public official needs to be able to climb a flight of stairs to enter a building? Or can we give them an elevator? Like, do we think a public official needs to be able to see people? Or can they be functioning in their job and be visually impaired? Like, this can go on and on and on. And so I would just really offer some really broad curiosity about like what access means and what participation means and what an able body means. And technology is helping us like expand what being able to fully participate means. This is not about Tim Murray.
Kate, did you want to say something?
Yeah. So I also look forward to future town boards. This would enable somebody who's got a baby, right? Can't find someone to take care of the kids or can't afford it. Because so the town board does get paid a little bit, doesn't pay for babysitter. This will enable people who have not been able to take part, right, in the governance, to be able to take part in more ways and to continue to take part. So say somebody has to travel for work, they could still Zoom in. And so I support this.
Have a couple hands up, Andrew.
So right, like both of, there's two things that are going. There's two things that are going on here, like, right, both of what you're saying is like, right, there are so many circumstances outside of like what this is being made about that could be possibilities in the future. And one thing that I'm gonna point out is like, right, going down this road, you are putting yourselves in the position where like at some point a judgment call is going to have to be made of like, right, the baby is not a valid reason to not attend, or like health issues are, and making decisions as far as like judgment calls of what is or is not a valid reason to exercise this. So like there is that issue on one hand, and then there's the other hand that like, right, what your constituents are saying is that like they don't feel comfortable with having elected representatives long-term absent from physical presence at meetings, which is valid. Like that is a valid opinion for constituents to have. It's like, and that is asking for like some clear definition of like, where does the line of extenuating get drawn, of like, are people comfortable with electing a board member that is going to be physically absent for the entirety of their term? Like what I'm hearing is no, that is not the case.
Thank you. Pete, and then Holly.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for interrupting before, but I will phrase the question somewhat formally as to the, or when does extraordinary become ordinary? Because I think that really does need to be considered, and it's there again, it's not a necessarily a quantitative thing, but it's a qualitative thing, a common sense thing. To Catherine, I disagree with you. This is about Tim. I mean, the other four of you are sitting here. he isn't, and that's been persistent, as I said earlier, with the one exception back when you were away, Mark. And to Kate, I will say, I know that, you know, you weren't coming to me, but I was on the town board back when I had my kids with me every other week. When one of those weeks fell, when I was on the board, they came here with me.
Okay.
And they did their homework, or they sat in the chair, got a little civics lessons, whatever. I mean, and then ultimately, if a person's circumstances are such that they just really can't come to the meetings, then I think that would be a disqualification. I wouldn't think that person would even want to be on the board, to tell you the truth. But I would also think the public wouldn't want to have that person, but yet you don't find out about this until after the election. Thank you.
Holly, please.
Yeah, my comments to Kate. So I had a baby back in 2019. I took the time off that they gave me, and now she goes to daycare like every other working parent does when their kid needs, you know, daycare during the day. You go to work, you can take them to daycare.
Thank you.
That's how it works.
So Tony?
I find it frustrating,
This is a discussion.
sad, that you're not hearing this. It is about Tim. Whether the law is not about Tim, but the public is telling you, we have a problem with the fact that he doesn't show up. And you need to recognize that. And whatever you do about that, you may have, you know, it's frustrating to hear this. And it goes right along with the rest of the stuff that we talk about. And it's like, nobody's hearing us. We don't get anything back that tells us you hear that.
I will tell you, I hear that, Tony. You have no understanding of Tim's personal circumstances, and it's none of your business.
Mark,
So
Mark,
that's all I'll say.
this is typical of this board.
Well, Tony, that's the reality of this.
You can't talk to you, I waste my time coming here.
I think probably every voter in this room sees this, and a lot of residents outside of this room see as the situation is with no board member here, not here, week after week or meeting after meeting. They kind of see this as a convenient law cover for this. And I'm not saying I'm feeling that. I'm saying a lot of people see that. They feel that, okay?
Okay,
Whether
thank
it
you.
is or whether it isn't, it's not a good air to put forth on the residents.
Can I just say, so I'm gonna reiterate what I said last week, and I wanna say it super clear. I find the timing of this highly regrettable for all of the reasons that everyone is saying. And so I can't express in any other way than to say, I'm hearing this, than to say I'm hearing it and just like hope that we have some good faith that you like trust that when I say I hear this situation regarding a particular board member, that is a significant concern to the community, and I hear it. The challenge I'm having and why I'm saying like I personally need to like I'm not thinking about Tim, because we have this agenda item that respectfully to all of you who are believing it's about Tim, this is like a New York State, this has nothing to do with a particular board member. I can't say that again. I mean, I can't say it in enough ways, in different ways. It's not about Tim. However, what I'm hearing like as a separate issue, so that's what we need to do with this public hearing and like move forward with this law in some way, shape or form. I don't even at this point, like, we just need to move forward with that. That's a separate issue from the issue of mistrust and concern about in-person participation in an ongoing way from a board member. Like, I hear it, and if that means we need to like engage with that another time, then we can do that. But that's like not what the public hearing is that we're having, and so I'm just trying to be really diligent about that
But see,
process.
you hit on that.
Thank you.
It's a mistrust issue,
I agree.
okay?
I
Steve,
agree.
And people, if they mistrust it, they're going to say they voted it in anyway.
100% agree with you. If we pretend that Tim Murray is not involved in this, what would you all think of this law?
But there is one board member that's never here, regardless of his name.
He is.
I just want to point out that other municipalities are doing this right now. The
Yes.
same thing. So this isn't something, this came to us. And so we're acting, in my opinion, and my motivation is to act responsibly.
I know you're in a hard spot, granted that,
All,
but the residents they don't see it as 100%.
Right.
Right.
Great, and then so we could decide then to not go forward with this, and then if at some time, in theory, right, at some time when it's required, and it's required with a person who you trust and like, you're gonna feel probably differently about it, and then we'll be in a pickle. That's the way it's gonna go. You can make that choice.
towns across the state have been dealing with this. This is not we're making up a law to cover up for somebody.
I'm not saying that.
And so that is what we're working on, is this law.
Kathy?
And that's why.
I respectfully request of this town board to reconsider this law at this time until we get broadband where everybody in the town has the same access. If I wanted to run for board, I would like to have this privilege too. But I don't have high-speed internet at my house. So I don't think it's fair that you're treating, it's being exclusionary, and I don't like that. I feel that it's underhanded.
I second that.
Yeah.
So, other comments, so what I want to do is take any further comments, and then we're going to close the public hearing, and we have this on the agenda for consideration. So Bruce?
I just wanted to bring up once again, I think it's probably could be a good law. I just don't like the way it's being put forward. When it was introduced, this is the law that was introduced. And it says right here, the video conferencing policy adopted by the town board. The policy was not adopted when this was presented to us. Then this was presented to us on the 6th. And it also says under the paragraph, under resolution, the bottom of the paragraph, adopts a policy establishing guidelines and conditions for such attendance. Then at the bottom under background, it says, and a written policy establishing guidelines and conditions for attendance of members at public meetings or video conferencing. And then the policy of all this, which is asked for in the provision law, is now given on the 6th, which was only 2 days ago. So therefore, this is a new law that's been brought up. It's not the same law that was brought up at the introduction. It's new now because it now shows us what the policy is. So therefore, you have not had enough time to vote on this law.
So I will address that, Bruce. The law is exactly the same as the one I introduced. The policy was introduced, as we do for any policy, by resolution for the town board meeting. It was provided in the agenda for this meeting. In regard to your concern about how the public notice was provided to the paper, I sent the publication so that it would be published in time. If something had come up and we had decided not to have a public hearing, I would have canceled that. But as you know, there's a time limit on getting that out.
You couldn't cancel it. It was posted Wednesday before the meeting.
Well,
So you couldn't
I would
cancel it.
cancel the public hearing at the meeting.
Right.
So,
And how can you say it's the same law when this is the law that is on the website?
okay,
And it's not the same as this one here. This one has policies spelled out what the law means
The
and how it's
policy-
going to be
the
represented.
policy,
It's not the same
the
here.
policy is not part of the law.
Well, then why is it in this? It's part of the law.
It's part of
If
the
you don't
agenda
know
for
what-
tonight.
You said that you were gonna develop the policy
I
at the
did.
last meeting. If you don't know what the policy is, in this, how the hell can you interpret the law?
The law is very plain. The law is very plain, and both documents
And
were
this law is
provided
plain.
in
This
advance
law
for
says
this
nothing
meeting
about policy.
where we're considering it.
This says nothing about policy at all.
The policy was provided for this meeting,
Right.
so that's perfectly
Okay, so the
legitimate.
policy was provided 2 days before the meeting? Shouldn't the policy been provided 5 days, which is the law?
No.
Before the meeting?
That's the law is, the public notice for the public hearing needs to be provided 5 days before the public hearing, and it was.
I think this exchange
Is-
is actually demonstrates that you all are correct, that there's a trust issue. Because this is a silly conversation right now, right? This is like, this exchange wouldn't be happening. Right, like, there's not a conspiracy around public notice of a law about a teleconference, like, I mean, like, so we need to address this, but please, let's just move forward.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a quick question for clarification? So like, so if, right, my understanding, if there were to be limits set either on qualifications for absence or time limits, that would be in the policy, correct, not in the law? And that can be changed at the town board by any time. Okay,
That's correct.
okay, thank you.
So I don't think that you should be comparing us to other municipalities, because first of all, we're Caroline, we're unique, we have other issues going on. And I just don't think we shouldn't be comparing us to somebody else's town. It makes no sense to me.
Okay, thank you. John Morse?
Yeah, just, couple things, but, I mean, I think that the sort of having the limits defined is important, and apparently that's not been done, but what I see right now, maybe I'm wrong, is that as far as COVID issues, New York State has already set their limit on the COVID for this, and that's tomorrow. And so if we did put limits in, if it's COVID related, those should be, that's done. And I'm sorry, Catherine, but, Catherine, I disagree.
That's okay.
This is, right now, in this town, this law is about Tim. And the law shouldn't be about Tim, and if you table this and you bring it back 6 months from now, when every board member's been sitting at that table and you say, you know what, we should talk about this because there could be a thing someday, then it won't be about Tim. But if you're doing this today, it's about Tim. It is. And, you know, that's what the town is gonna perceive, is you don't have one person speaking up in favor of this, not one. Think about that.
Any other comments for the public hearing? So,
I work for part-time for an organization that promotes accessibility. It's one of our key and integral mission statements, actually. So in a typical situation, I would be 100% for this policy. I am somebody who went to school online. I raised, I'm a single mom. Kathy can tell you that when I worked for the ambulance agent, or volunteer at the ambulance, I had to find people that could spend the night at my house, that I could run with the ambulance. I'm somebody who completely understands the difficulties in accessibility for many different reasons between, work, parenting, disability, whatever it might be. However, I think that in this situation with this law and the timing, as was discussed, is very ill-fated. And I also think that there do need to be stipulations around it as far as the duration of time that one can be absent. I think that if you're running for something like town board, you need to be present at least part of the time, if not most of the time. And if you are on a board where you're saying, sorry, I'm on this board, but I can only attend through Zoom, I find that completely unacceptable unless there's some extreme extenuating circumstances. So I don't know, it's a very interpersonal thing.
thank you. And any other comments? Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing on the proposed Caroline video conferencing local law. And I will now open the business meeting and call for, invite privilege of the floor. Anybody who wishes to address the board? Kathy Mix.
This one I'm gonna read, if you don't mind. Thank you for allowing me to talk, Kathy Mix.
Kathy, could you stand over here? Jesse will put the camera on you. People will be able to see you. Thank you.
Speaking of technology.
Right. Get my good side, okay. Amongst the discourse and turmoil in town right now, I'd like to take a moment to rewind and remind some of us of some things. The town board are elected officials. As such, they are charged with great responsibility and have a duty to conduct the day-to-day business of the operations of the town, be financial stewards of taxpayers' money, and ensure various services that are provided or available to the town, and the townspeople, such as road creation and maintenance, lighting, public health and safety, and internet service. We, the taxpayer, expect these to be delivered efficiently and effectively. Per New York State Town Law Manual, I quote, "When the town board member votes on a proposal before the town board, he or she is representing through that vote the views of all of the residents of the town." Continuing further in this, I quote, "It requires that they exercise careful consideration in making important decisions that will affect the lives of the town residents and businesses." I respectfully remind and encourage our council members to be open-minded as they actively listen to the community residents that they serve. In addition, how they conduct themselves both in private and public attendance are perceived as representations of us and you, the board. In conclusion, as the board votes in the future, be cautious as these decisions made will affect all of the lives of the citizens of the town and businesses, which make Caroline the unique place it is. It's not just for a select few.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Your words are well taken. Holly?
There's an underlying reason behind everything. When you first look, you might not see it. Sometimes you have to dig a little deeper to find out what that hidden agenda might be. My name is Holly McGee, and yes, I'm the one that sends the emails that you never respond to. Well, fair warning tonight, because I'm not going to take it easy on any of you. I want to start off by saying Caroline does not want or need zoning. I have attended numerous board meetings, zoning meetings, and listening sessions. And I want to point out that it does not take a rocket scientist to see that zoning is not wanted by the residents here. I have spent many hours researching, listening, and watching all of this, and I still continue to have one question. Why? Why is the town board doing this? The board has listened to hundreds of residents speak out against zoning, and they don't care what we have to say. This has been made blatantly obvious by the actions of Mark Whitmer, who continues to relentlessly push for this unnecessary form of invasion. The zoning draft claims this is for the benefit of our health and well-being and to protect the environment. Well, we all know that statement is a bold-faced lie. When was the last time anyone from the town board has checked up on anyone else's health in this town? And for that matter, what have they done prior to the zoning push to show that they care about the environment? The residents can see right through you. We know the real reason behind the zoning initiative, and it isn't to keep us healthy. To prove my point, I am quoting this statement from the Town of Caroline website under the South Hill Recreation Way Extension Trail page. An intermunicipal planning partnership of the Town of Caroline, Danby, Dryden, and Ithaca, and Tompkins County to explore the possible extension of multiple use public trail, end quote. Of course, I realize that this specific trail system has been an ongoing battle between residents and the town board and NYSEG for several years. But Caroline is not Danby, it is not Dryden, and it is definitely not Ithaca. Caroline is unique, and those towns already have zoning. Caroline does not. So in noticing that you have Caroline listed right along with those three towns and the words possible extension of multiple use public trail, of course, I have to investigate further. This is when I locate on Google at the Tompkins County, New York.gov website, the Tompkins Priority Trail Strategy, which states, and I quote, "We can get there from here, and we have natural beauty, cultural resources, and a large number of existing trails and roads trail routes that can be completed and connected. It also goes on to say, targeted trail development in the next 2 to 5 years can create a cohesive network that will form the basis of impressive destination quality trail systems and local recreation and transportation resources. The county is fortunate to have many community trails, snowmobile trails, four-season trails, and state trails with which to build the network. End quote. For the time being, the network of trails in which they speak of are at a standstill. You can't go any further with these trails without trespassing on private property in Caroline, unless you pass a little something called zoning, just like Danby, Dryden, and Ithaca, which would allow you to trespass without permission. So whose backyard will this network of future trails infringe upon? Whose homes, sheds, crops, or livestock will be in the way of this growing network? Whose privacy will be invaded? What is even more infuriating is that the former public swimming hole, the Mill, is and has been posted for many years now by a current board member, and another board member shut down the snowmobile trails on their land. Obviously, because they don't want to be sued for people's injuries, they don't want garbage thrown everywhere, and they just don't want trespassers on their land. Whatever the reason, that is your right. But if you all don't want people wandering around on your properties, then why on God's green earth would you expect us to want random people on ours? That seems very hypocritical of all of you. So no zoning wanted, no zoning needed, and nobody wants your intrusive trails on their properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. I do want to offer
Excuse me.
just brief feedback, and then RC. The zoning law does not prescribe or mandate trails on people's property. So
It says right in there, trails.
the reference to trails is encouraging that, I believe, in subdivisions. So, but
You say that now until they decide to take the little subdivisions out of there. Mhm. We know what you're doing.
I can assure you that that's not the case.
Yeah, okay.
So, RC?
Yeah, we do wonder. I try not to stand before you as a world-weary pundit or a curmudgeon, but I've been around for a while. I'm a little long in the tooth. My family's been here on this land in Caroline since 1864. We're multi-generational landowners. A lot of the other people who do not want zoning are multi-generational landowners and business owners and mothers and fathers, and have raised families and have done best by their neighbors. We're not a group of rednecks. We're not gonna burn the place down. We want what's best for Caroline, and a majority of the board does not. My parents, the Quick Cemetery is probably our biggest legacy. And we took that in 1864, and in 1909, it was incorporated as a nonprofit and became an association. So the existing acreage of the Quick Cemetery went from private land to being owned by the association. In the mid-1990s, my mother donated 2.5 more acres, of which probably 40 people of our town have purchased plots, and one 4-year-old has found his eternal resting place there. We've always tried to help. My parents taught me to respect other people's property. They taught me to say thank you. And if you went to somebody's house for dinner, you damn well better clean your plate. And if you went somewhere on vacation with someone, you said a thank you note. A group of us purchased this first set of signs September, October, 200 signs. And Jim and I and some other people put them along my land on Lounsbury Road and Landon Road on our property. I bought the sign, it's my property, I own it. 2 days later, I come up to work in my woods and I'm faced with this. So someone had walked along the road, trespassed on my private property, took my private sign, took it home, defaced it, brought it back, trespassed on my private property again, and went on their merry way. I picked it up and I put it in my garage months and months ago. I didn't run down Landon Road to the people who live there and pound on their doors. I didn't even get angry. You know what I got, Mark? You know what I got? Sad. Can you understand that? Yes. Sad that we've fallen this far. Did these people think this was clever, funny, ingenious, a family project? Getting back at Ken Miller, that son of a bitch, for trying to put in a Dollar General store, and they didn't even know the signs were on my land? Come on. I don't want an apology. I would like whoever did this to, in a public forum, just tell me why. But the problem is that takes character. Thank you.
Any other speakers for privilege on the floor?
My name is Emily.
Hello?
Hi.
Wrong number.
Shall I? Okay. I am admittedly not particularly politically savvy nor involved. I have been aware of the zoning proposition here in Caroline for some time, driving around. It's widely advertised. I, however, had not realized that it was not a public vote, that it was to be voted on by the town board. Because driving around, I thought, well, this is never gonna pass. I had never seen anything in promotion of zoning. So then that led me to worry a little bit, and also to think, how do town board members consider the position of power that they are placed in? What do they think that their job is? And I'd be willing to wager that nobody really votes for any politician, but particularly a town board member, thinking they know better than I do. These are our neighbors. We all come from non-political backgrounds. I'm sure they thought, that is the person whose values are most aligned with mine, whose vision for the town, yeah, that person is gonna serve me the best out of all my options. So the counterpoint, so my issue is I've seen nothing in support of zoning, so what in the heck are we even really talking about? And I guess the counterpoint has been made that perhaps people on the flip side of that coin are fearful of political persecution for holding an unpopular opinion. And I find this really surprising, given that we live in a particularly politically opinionated area. We're almost remorselessly politically opinionated. And But then I thought, okay, so how can we really know what people think, what percentage of the population really is in favor of zoning? And then I thought of, okay, we could have a mock vote, which maybe seems insane to everybody, but to me, I think that is a sound proposition. I think that would be a really good tool for the town board to really understand, okay, this is really this really is the landslide that it appears, or, oh, there really is a silent, huge majority of this population that is just not voicing their opinions in the face of all these people that are really worked up on the flip side of the coin. And I don't really propose this thinking that the town board is going to hold a mock vote. But partly because if they really cared about what the town's opinion was, I'm not a genius, they would have already taken that intuitive leap and been like, okay, let's really see what people think. So, but to me, it's it's a success. It would be a success in either case. It would be validating if that was held and then they voted in accordance to what the community said. But to me, it'll be validating even if they don't hold that and it's proposed, because to me, it's that validation of what to me appears to be blatant disregard for the community's opinion. The community is scared. They are scared. They are literally begging you not to pass this proposition that you have set forth, and you're the only ones that have that power. And the last thing I want to say is really that to me, you're in a beautiful political position. This is the only sort of governmental body that has the capability to be unscathed by corruption and self-interest, and not to squander that, and to really there is, being here tonight, I am oh yeah, holy hell, there is a huge trust issue, and to rebuild that, it's not, you've got to appreciate that we're all just on the same wavelength here, all coming from non-political backgrounds, and that your job is to listen to your community and not to push what you think is the best idea, because we're all just the same, and to treat your constituents as intellectual invalids, that is how it translates, is you guys just don't really know, we understand and we know better. And I think that's really dangerous.
Thank you. Anyone else for privilege of the floor? John Morse. I'm going to close privilege of the floor after that, out of respect to the. Okay.
First of all, very nice job. Thank you. I haven't been here in a while. I just want to make sure that you folks know I haven't gone away and I'm still fully against zoning, all right? Just been busy. In fact, I'm headed back to work when I get out of here. I guess tonight, I want to just talk about the fact that I believe this town has changed immensely in their approach to helping out businesses in this town. And we'll talk about a couple things. Number one, a little bit of history for me. My family built Celebrations. We bought property in 1996 on Route 79 and went through some work to design the facility with an engineer, and we hit a roadblock. And we were done. We were not going to be able to build our property. We needed a sprinkler system, which was immensely cost prohibitive. We don't have city water. So giant holding tanks, generators, and pumps, plus the system. Don Barber at the time was the town supervisor. Don was an advocate of new business in this town. And Don took it upon himself along with my father and our engineer, and they road tripped to Syracuse. And they spent the day in meetings up there with the state board to propose a variance for us based on different things that we did above and beyond what was required at the time for safety and egress, et cetera. And Don was able to help us get a variance, and we built our business as a family. And here we are, we've been open 23 years now. So we've done in my opinion, I'm biased, but a lot for this community. We've hosted fireworks shows, we've sponsored ball teams. Countless young people have had their first work experiences with us, usually in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 employees per year, many of which are local. We've given out literally thousands of free meals to folks who either work for us or have needed them, sometimes through the help of the church out front. And everybody in this community does not like what we do. We make noise sometimes. I've got cars parked, whatever. But back in the day, we had help from the town board to build a business. What I see today is efforts that will all but stop business in this town. There is nothing in the zoning proposal, absolutely nothing that is good for business. There is, don't look at me like that, that's true.
I'm listening.
There is one lot in the town that's being left zoned commercial. In the entire town of Caroline, one lot. And it's a joke, and we all know it. 5,000 square feet, not one business on that road is 5,000 square feet. Why does the next one have to be 5,000 square feet? Not one business on that road has their parking lot out back. Why does the next one have to have their parking lot out back? Why does the next business, the only one that can get the open lot, have to have umpteen considerations to buy? And what happens to my business, or Sherry's business, or Don Hars's business, or anybody else's business, when they have to sell, which, there's a lot of businesses that came in dire need the last couple of years, and trust me, being in the event business, when the big events aren't allowed, is about the worst freaking thing that can happen to you, right? There's not one business, where was I going? Shit, lost my own track of thought there.
What happens?
When they sell.
Yeah, when they have to sell. So I'm grandfathered as a wedding business. Now I want to sell. There's nothing in there if I can't make a wedding business go with the experience I have, the next freaking guy is not going to make a wedding business go either. And now I need to sell to, TCAT Bus Company, and they want to stage some buses for their New York City trips, or a church, or God knows what, and I can't do it. You've not only taken away my business, you've taken away my future and my freaking retirement. The other businesses won't be able to come in because you're putting such regulations on them in a town. There's no need. We already looked at it. I told you that there's 5 or 6 businesses that literally in 30 years that have been built in this town as a business. There's lots of other businesses that have started up, but they've taken over properties that already exist. People are not flocking to Caroline to build businesses. And the other thing is, the last meeting I was at before today was when Scott Conover talked about what's going on with Sweet Caroline. And I don't know all the history there. I'm not going to pretend that I do. But when I saw what the town board did for me, when I needed help as a business, and I see what they're doing to them by hiring a special person to come in and go through stuff, that is the nicest stinking thing. It's exactly what you're trying to build with zoning. This town board should have gone out of their way and hired a person to help them find a way to get their business okay as a commercial, not find a way to stop them. And maybe I'm off base with some of that, but I think I'm pretty freaking close. So not only that, we've seen the sign, no Dollar General needed. People all the time, we've already stopped a business. So to sit there and think that zoning's not going to stop businesses, it already did. And which business did it stop? It stopped one of the businesses that would help the folks who need help the most, the less financially privileged people in our town. Does the guy that's making 130 grand a year as a professor, do they need the Dollar General? Absolutely not. Does the guy that has to decide how he's going to put an extra gallon of gas in his car to get downtown and back, to buy bread, they need the stinking Dollar General. We've stopped something already that hurts the poorer people in this community. And if you think you didn't, you're sadly mistaken, because that's exactly what happened. The folks who need it the most are being hurt the most, and that's what zoning will do. Thank you.
I hate to have to say something like this, but I would be saying this if it was any one of you board members that did this. I sent my wife down to the chicken barbecue to get chicken. And she came home and said she was like 4 cars in front of these cars behind her, and all of a sudden somebody starts screaming and hollering, you can't do that, this is public property, carrying on and going nuts. And then I get on the internet a little later and I read a message from this person's wife stating that people were intimidating and harassing people. And it was our deputy supervisor that was yelling and carrying on and saying they couldn't do this in public. And that's not what one of our elected officials should be doing. And I've done things in these meetings and I have apologized. And I believe Tim Murray owes the town an apology. As a town representative, there's no way in hell you should be acting that way.
Thank you, Bruce. All right, so I'm gonna pause. You trying to speak or? Okay, oh, okay. Tim, did you want to speak?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I want to say that on Saturday, I regret that I spoke too loudly to express to a number of people who were lobbying cars, waiting for their chicken barbecue for political purposes. And what I said was that I thought that it was inappropriate to lobby for political purposes at the fire department, not-for-profit fundraising event. And I realized almost immediately that I should have said this much more quietly, directly to the people. To the fire department, which I did later. So I do apologize, and I apologize to those who were there at the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you for the apology. I was there.
Yeah.
I was there.
I was there.
Yeah,
And it was shouting.
thank you. He did acknowledge that, so thank you, Jenny.
I accept it, Mr. Murray, and I'm glad that I can actually recognize you tonight. I haven't before, but like I said, I organized the horse protest. And I don't feel that zoning is political because I know what's going on in Hector and the superintendent in Hector is Republican. So like I said, I accept your apology, but to me, it was not political. Okay, thank you.
May I also say that Tim did apologize down there.
Great.
He apologized to me. I actually spoke with him after that. So just for the record.
Thank you, Janet.
Oh,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Janet.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. I apologize.
Great, okay. Cool, I would like to move to the meeting. Todd is here to make a nice presentation for us. Thanks, everybody, for coming and expressing your concerns and opinions about the video conferencing law. We will be taking that up later in the meeting. I would propose that we
Thank you, guys. I've never run.
we maybe jump to Todd's presentation. Would you want to do that? It's already 8:30. And it'd be nice if he could, and then after his presentation, then we'll pass the resolution establishing the Town of Caroline Capital Equipment Planning Committee. So, and you want me to go ahead and pull the PowerPoint up?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great.
So I don't know, do we have, I don't know if there's any extra
There should be.
Copies, Jesse, anybody?
I have it on my computer, so someone will.
Yes, all those direct.
Good evening, everybody. I think what I have to talk about on behalf of the committee is not controversial at all, so let's enjoy my 10 minutes of fame here, maybe?
Wait till the next meeting.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm Todd Schmidt. I live on.
the optimism.
Yeah, oh, wait, yeah, I mean, I'm an eternal optimist, but I'm part of the Highway Capital Planning Committee. So what I have to say is on behalf of all of us, it was a great committee, included Barry Goodrich, Ken Hammond, myself, Pete Hoyt, Ed Kirtland, and Len Pargazala. And we also benefited from the board insight of Cal Snow and a lot of the technical input and stuff from your highway superintendent, Bobby Spencer. Things got heated at times during our committee meetings.
Yeah,
Right? No. So if you go ahead and advance the next slide, the charge, which will be official after I speak, but that's okay. It's paraphrased of what Mark's resolution is, but we were charged with looking for recommendations on highway capital equipment planning and timing in a way that's cost effective to the town, to the taxpayers, provides better predictability, i.e. stability in budgeting over time, and looking at things such as what are the priorities for equipment, purchasing and reselling on rotation cycles, purchasing used equipment is in the resolution. Renting or borrowing from municipal partners. So that was our charge. You can go ahead and flip to the next slide. So what's on this slide on the right-hand side is the current list of trucks, excavators, tractors, loaders, graders, etc. that the town currently has, provided by Bobby. He also has a very detailed list of every little piece of smaller line equipment that we're not going to talk about, you know, chainsaws and things like that. It's a relatively smaller portion of the budget. But we talked in our first meeting about, you know, what is it that we need as a town for the highway crew to be efficient, to service the public needs. And the current sort of complement of what we have is about right. And probably actually, you know, correct me if I say anything incorrectly, okay? And so the complement is good, right? But really focusing on timely replacement of this frontline equipment is one which will improve efficiencies of the department. So what are the issues? Next slide, please. There's a lot going on this graph. I'll try to decompose it. But the issues are several, right? The nature of the purchases the town needs to make. You know, when you got to drop $300,000 for a big piece of equipment, that's a big hit on your budget. The black line that you see there is sort of the lumpy purchases, right? These are actual expenditures on that black line. Is it possible to move Tim's head to the side?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, Tim, you're just right in the middle of our screen. So you're covered up by pretty graph. So we purchased.
He is.
So, yeah, he's a little.
Yeah, you're right in the middle.
Anyways, hopefully most people have the slides, right? So this is an issue, right? How as a town board do we think about budgeting stuff that can go all over the map? And so those are actual expenditures since 2014. What you see, those little brown squares are what was actually budgeted that year, approved in the budget. So you can see, and for example, and I don't know what happened, I went and got those numbers later, and I guess the webmaster took off the 2014 and 15 budgets off the website, so I only go back to 2016. But what you see there is in 2016, they budgeted something like $125,000 for highway equipment. And what the actual expenditures were something over 50,000 that year, okay? So what that means is, there was a little surplus left in the account, which traditional practice, the one that we're arguing against at the end of my presentation is, that's the extra surplus goes over to fund balance for the highway capital department, right? It doesn't go to waste, you know, Bobby doesn't get it, right? You don't get it. No, I didn't think so. You know, it goes to fund balance. I'm trying to lighten up the mood a little bit here, I'm sorry. Right, so that goes to fund balance and that increases and you gotta monitor so you don't have too
And
much fund balance.
fund balance is that's town reserves. just-
Town reserves, the reserve account, right? And past practice is, well, is there enough money in that reserve, right? So we can buy that next piece of equipment, right? So you'll see in the next year, 2017, they budgeted about the same amount, actually it was 115,000, but they spent over $350,000. I don't remember what the piece of equipment was at the time, Bobby could tell you. It's probably pre-Bobby, wasn't it?
It was premium, it was great.
The great.
Great, there you go, right? So what happens in that year? Well, say we take some money out of the reserve fund, because we only budgeted that we paid for in the levy 115, but we spent 300. So we pull that out, right? So past practice is see what happens, and all of a sudden we have enough in fund balance, so we can buy that piece of equipment that, I don't know, maybe we need it for 3 years or something, right? So we want to do something different. Well, think about ways to level out that expenditure, makes it easier for budgeting purposes, and hopefully decrease the overall costs to taxpayers. There's a little red dotted line there, that's the trend line on purchases. If you just do a simple linear regression, that basically says every year over that time period, expenditures on average went up $25,000. Okay, I'll come back to that number, remember that. Okay, but so some years you can see even on the budget numbers, those little brown squares, right? Some years you budget a little bit, and some years you budget a whole bunch. So you're trying to balance these things and thinking about what's in the reserve fund. This is my sort of piggy bank budgeting, my words. But that's what I call it. So we have really uneven purchasing. We have a pretty steep positive trend line on purchases. We're keeping things really a long time, so when we're ready to replace them, they're worth next to nothing. That's the blue line on the bottom of that graph. And the red line is the cost of repairs for that equipment. Okay, something breaks down, it's either somebody on the highway crew is serving as a mechanic for a day, or we're buying parts, or worse yet, with more sophisticated equipment, right? That goes where the superintendent has to actually hire somebody to come in and fix the machine, okay? So what we see on that, if you can go back.
Did I do that?
I didn't do it.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Right, so there's a negative correlation between when you buy new stuff and how much repairs you have. Makes sense, right? You don't buy new stuff for a long time, you end up spending a lot more time in repairs. Technically, for every 1% increase in new purchases, you decrease your repair costs by 0.35%, right? So we know there's a side benefit of replacing stuff sooner because we can save money on the repair side. And over in our committee meeting, we emphasize that we don't want the highway crew, nothing against them, to be mechanics. We want them working on our roads, plowing snow, digging ditches, all that, many things that they do, okay? So those are the issues. You can go ahead.
Okay.
So our first discussions, cricket?
Yeah, there's crickets in here.
Am I making the cricket? All right, the cricket's excited because I brought up a slide about economics.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so our first discussions at the committee meeting was, okay, so how do we help deal with this thing, right? And one way is to say, well, let's save money every year. So when we got to make that big purchase 5 years from now, we got it. You kind of indirectly do it with the piggy bank approach, but that's very haphazard. But you could plan. It's like, we know we're going to need to replace that piece of equipment 5 years from now. We're going to stick $50,000 into savings every year to pay for it. Okay, smooths out expenditures over time. Good thing. Or what we found out at a later meeting that Bobby was starting to do was you could actually pay on installment for new equipment, i.e., You take a loan out and you pay for it after you get it. Okay? So I believe my comment at the committee meeting was, oh, Bobby, you just solved our problem for us, because if you look at my example, which is on the next slide, I do a simple example. Let's say we have a $250,000 piece of equipment that we need to buy. So we could save $50,000 a year for the next 5 years. You do that, that adds up to our $250,000. Very cool, right? But actually, by saving over time, the present value of those costs, right, is less than $250,000, right? You think about, well, I got that other $200,000 that I'm doing something else with to generate a return, okay? So the present value of those costs is actually something like, oh, I have it in my hand, $217,000.
That's assuming a 5%.
Assuming a 5% discount rate, yes. Discounted back to the present. This is the time value of money, okay? It's kind of equivalent if I say, I got $50,000 for you today, or I can give you $50,000 a year from now. Which one do you want? Right? $50,000 today is worth more, right? Because you do something with it, hopefully generate a return. Same. Okay, we're not going to get into marginal tax rates on this, but right, same thing, but in reverse. Okay. Alternatively, if you had that, we're going to buy that piece of equipment now in year 5 for $250,000. We're going to take a loan out. We're going to make annual installments at a 5% interest rate. That means your annual payments will be $57,744 a year. Okay. Just simple amortization math. So you end up over the 5 years paying for it, spending $289,000. That's more than $250,000, but you're not starting to pay for that from the perspective of planning today until 5 years from now. So if you discount that back to today, it actually costs you, the town, less money to wait and pay for it with a reasonable interest rate. Okay? So people will say, well, that all depends on what the interest rate is. The simple example, the interest rate would have to be 200 basis points higher, about 39%, for it to actually equate. And given lending rates for municipalities, I think the reverse is actually pretty true. So it was of the committee said installment makes sense. Functionally equivalent on reducing volatility in budget expenditures over time, but financially a benefit to the town. So bye-bye pre-savings, let's focus on installment. Next slide, please. Okay, we then worked, well, mostly Bobby. We asked Bobby to do a lot, and he did. And some of this might look familiar. Some of it, there's some updated numbers here, but these are basically purchase plan over the next 15 years. He presented a version of it at the last year's budget meeting. And the black line, and this is the sum over all purchases. If you want to look at individual pieces of equipment, that fleet that I showed you, it's all encompassed in these numbers. This is the total expenditures by year for the highway equipment fleet. The black line is gross expenditures using the current system, which has been basically 10-year rotation, keeping things longer, a little bit sooner on smaller equipment, but a roughly 10-year rotation on things, which again gives you lower resale value. But those are the gross expenditures, pretty floppy over time. The red is a 7-year, is a replace all of our equipment at warranty and where available, purchase on installment, okay, from the example that I showed you. On net, you know, the overall expenditures are pretty equivalent on the same, but you'll notice on the front end, the first 5 to 6 years, what you get is a ramp up on the installment plan as more and more pieces of equipment get on rotation. And then after that, the last half of the forecast period, you get a much lower volatility and actually decreasing churn for the last parts of those. So in terms of gross expenditures, overall, they're relatively equivalent, but if you look at net expenditures, next slide, please. When we think about selling this equipment earlier, and Bobby puts it on, I forget what he calls it, it's not just setting it out on state bid, he advertises a piece of equipment. What was it?
Auctions International.
Auctions International, see, I learned a lot sitting on this committee. If you look at the net, right, so this is gross expenditures less resale of equipment. The black line doesn't change much because the equipment wasn't worth as much. But if you're replacing everything at warranty expiration, you get a much higher resale value on the used equipment and have the new piece of equipment. And here, my status quo expenditures are higher in 11 out of the 15 years. Okay? So again, more evidence for installment planning. And again, Bobby has the detailed spreadsheets for every piece, when it goes up for renewal and replacement. Next one. I'm almost done. So if you look at it overall, first, we also said, well, maybe we could do even better, right? Maybe to really harp it on those savings on repair costs, right? Keep guys working on the roads, not under the machines. Maybe we could actually ramp up the rotation and sell everything 2 years prior to warranty expiration, right? Should be worth more, right? Does that make sense? That's the install 5 that I'm going to ignore shortly. And it turns out people aren't used to buying, or at least the people that Bobby was talking to get price estimates for this equipment 2 years earlier. They're not used to having much of this. And so you actually find that more accelerated timeline better than the status quo, okay, than the base plan, but not as good as the 7-year warranty expiration replacement. Okay? So under the base plan, over the next 15 years, you're talking about gross expenditures of about $4.5 million. The installment plan that we propose is a little bit higher, yes, 4.7 million in gross, right? Because we're replacing things sooner, so you'd expect it to be higher, but we're also selling things sooner, so the sales are much higher, and so the net average expenditures under the base is about 4 million, and under the installment plan is less than 3. Okay? If you put that into present value terms, right? Because I don't know this, and I like to do that, right? What you're talking about is gross expenditures that are only 2% higher under the installment plan, but you save over this 15-year time horizon 28% in net expenditures. Significant savings for taxpayers. Okay? The other thing is about volatility. I calculated another metric because I can. I had to look up the formula. That's okay. Degree from Cornell, that's what happens. So I calculate what's called the coefficient of variation. Okay, this talks about how volatile these expenditures are over time, right? And one of our other charges is try to reduce volatility. All it is a standard deviation divided by the average. But what it says is the coefficient of variation under the base plan for our expenditures is about 38%, but it's 29% under the installment plan. So we both save money and we have lower volatility. Okay.
Could you check the volatility on how much we can sell these for?
Yes. The volatility, well, obviously under the base plan, because there were nothing, we said maybe we get 30,000 a year, the volatility is 0.
Right.
The volatility on the sales is obviously going to be higher because it depends what year you're selling things at, okay? So
but if you're
the net is what I would say is the most important in terms of that. Of course, you're selling things at different times, you have volatility. It's at a much lower magnitude, right? For almost 5 million relative to almost 2 million. So the volatility has less of a relative impact on the bottom line.
I just want to make sure that there's not like some reason that 1 year just we can't make as much money selling it as another year. I mean, it's pretty steady, the prices are pretty. Other prices pretty steady.
This is a 15-year plan with all the things that go with it. I'm basing it on the experience and the expertise of Bobby. Right, so I think this is a pretty good estimate based on what he has been getting for machinery over the past few years and what he expects he can get on for that.
That's what that lower number shows, is things that we've had to sell are literally worth nothing. We've kept them so far behind
Oh, I see.
that they're worth nothing.
So where are you getting the numbers for when it's just past the 5-year mark?
This was right from a dealer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had lots of conversations to fill in that very detailed spreadsheet that I won't bother you with. This is the sum over all of it. Okay, last number I want to point out on here, for our recommended plan, the install 7, you see the average expenditures, gross expenditures about 315,000, sales of about 118,000. The difference between those two is $197,000. Remember that number. This is what you should be thinking about in terms of an annual budget line for expenditures for equipment. Right? This is the plan, right? You're averaging about 196,000. We're putting everything on rotation. It's going to take a little while to get up to that. So there's going to be a little bit of fund balance stuff, but not anything like it is now. But that's a number you should be focusing on. To put that number in perspective, the budgeted amounts for the last 6 years were up and down, but they averaged about $181,000. Okay, so it's not that much different. Okay, next slide. This was just a slide. So I told you the volatility on those expenditures were lower under the installment plan over the entire time period. That's the first point on that graph. If you look at actual farther out periods, the last 7 years or the last 5 years, under the base plan, that volatility level actually grows, but decreases as we get more and more stuff on installment and rotation under the installment.
So those data points that you made that line out of those 3 data points are just for those.
Yeah, a line might not be, there should be 3 points, I guess. It was just to highlight it went down and the other one went up, right? The first data point is the average volatility over the 15-year planning horizon, 2021 to 2025. The second data point is the last 7 years, split that, right? And the last one is the last 5 years of the horizon, just looking at what's happening later. And it's good news to say that based on our current projections, the volatility would actually get better over time.
So the x-axis isn't very accurate.
The x-axis is three lines, the 2021 to 2035 years average. The second point is the time period of 2029 to 2035. The last is 2031, 2030.
So that's not, okay.
Right.
It's not an accident.
Huh?
It's 3 data points. I only put lines in to show that the change from the prior point. It's a time period. For the time period of 2021 to 2035, the volatility, the CV for the installment plan was about 38%. If you look at just the last 7 years, that actually goes down to 20%.
Okay, the overlapping numbers confuse me.
Sorry about that. That's what my students say all the time. All right, next slide. The other thing we talked about a lot is price changes over time, right? Anytime you make a projection for the next 15 years, you know, getting out there farther, you got a little bit more of bandwidth on what you think that might be. So we also recommend that you consider indexing your budgeted amount, that 200,000, if you will, based on something like the producer price index. This is from the St. Louis Fed. It's publicly available information. It's a little scary to look at that these days because what it shows is sort of the index for machinery and equipment expenditures relatively flat over the last 4 years. And you know, the crazy world we're living in right now with chip shortages and COVID and everything else, that PPI is going, right? But if you look at it a little bit differently, next slide, if you look at, for example, the annual percentage change in the producer price index, before we get into the crazy world we're living in right now, that annual change was about 2.5%, 3%. Kind of when you think about like, how much does the CPI change every year, right? You know, cost of living increases, same type of magnitude. So it's about, you know, in January 2020, relative to the prior years, it was about 2% higher, okay? So we need to be conscious, particularly over a 15-year planning horizon, of thinking about overall broader market conditions that affect prices. So think about the PPI as well in potentially increasing that average increment based on how that changes over time.
So you would, sorry, Tom, go
They
ahead.
do have an index though for like heavy machinery.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby could pick out the first one. They have, this is general machinery and equipment. You know, there was electrical machinery and equipment. Whether this general one is the right one, I don't know. Bobby could tell you. There's a whole bunch of different classifications for it.
Yeah, but
I just picked one. It's probably reasonably
yeah,
represented.
not an index that includes groceries, clothing, and shoes.
No. This is a producer price index for machinery and equipment. Doesn't have any consumer
Stuff in it.
price stuff in it at all. That's right.
So we would be increasing that 196 in the budget every year, looking at something like this.
We would encourage you to refer to that in terms of your budgeting to meet overall market condition. You're talking about 2% on a $200,000 budget. Again, I got a Cornell degree, I can't do math in my head, I think that's $4,000
a year.
okay? So it's not a lot, unless you're talking about right now. So right now, we'll be planning on, you know, 10%, 15%, which is what I'm hoping for. I'm not making a prediction, is that's gonna level out here soon. Okay, so our final recommendations. Next slide, please. So our recommendations from the committee is to replace equipment at warranty expiration to help minimize repair costs and net expenditures on equipment. We really think this is a more efficient utilization of the highway crew for road services and related other sort of public safety types of issues associated with it. Historically, there's a strong negative correlation between by delaying new equipment purchases with amping up repair costs. This will address that issue. Okay. Buying used equipment, we talked about it, and we said no. For the only reason is it's just simply exacerbates the issue of, is it under warranty? Is it not under warranty? Are we getting, is it a lemon? Are we not getting a lemon? For consistent, easy budgeting, focus on warranty expiration and purchasing equipment. In the same way, while I understand the interest in thinking about equipment sharing in a normal day-to-day operations, that may work. But when you think about something that you're sharing that you have to have in a flood event, in a snowstorm, every one of those towns or communities are going to want that same piece of equipment. And personally, and I think the committee agrees, we don't want to be in that situation where we don't have access to that equipment. And this works. This is not considerably different in terms of overall average expenditures than what has been done. It just reduces it and levels the expenditures over time. Second, pursue installment planning. The lending conditions and stuff really support that. Not all of the equipment on that list will showcase it. If you want to look at Bobby's spreadsheet, I'm sure he'd be happy to share it with you. You know, certain things like his truck where he's putting on a lot of miles, right? That gets replaced every other year anyways, doesn't make sense to do that installment. But really pursue that. It's functionally equivalent to pre-purchase savings to reduce volatility, but it's much more beneficial in terms of expenditures, reducing expenditures. And that volatility measure actually gets better with time. One thing that I didn't talk about a lot, there's a unique, renewal on the loader for $12,000 per year, which allows replacement of the existing loader annually for a new one. It's included in the budget numbers that I show. It's a no-brainer in terms of the function of the financial advantages of having that type of equipment. Okay, last page, one more. Sorry.
Right up.
Going back to the PPI and the state of the world that we're living in here right now, the highway crew cannot order a piece of equipment and get it for 2 years. Okay, you just can't do it. And so when we're thinking about or recommending to implement this installment plan, we need to be thinking ahead about pre-ordering, if we can, for delivery of that equipment that's needed per the schedule 2 years from now. And I think Bobby has something for the board meeting later about this for a truck purchase for 2024. Note, correct me if I'm wrong, Bobby, you put the order in now, the installment plan doesn't start until 2024. Right? So you're not out any money. You're just putting an order in for something you know you're going to need and plan to replace. Okay? So we recommend budgeting annual expenditures at 200,000. Yes, that's not 197,000, but I added a little 2% increment for chainsaws and trimmers and all that list of other equipment. And 200 just comes off the lips a lot better than $197,456. But consider that 200,000 in the context of the producer price index, so we can account for broader market changes consistent with the plan. Generally speaking, the sort of piggy bank and monitoring the fund balance approach, when it's high enough to buy something, is just frankly not a good planning strategy, right? It gives you some really cheap years in the budget, okay? It gives you really cheap years on DA 5130.4 if you're not planning on buying anything. But what happens is you got to make sure that there's enough going into that fund balance and you have enough in the budget when you need that new piece of equipment so you don't end up in a crisis. What if you need the new piece of equipment and you don't have a fund balance available to do it? So we really highly recommend the installment plan approach with replacing equipment at 7 years. It takes a commitment. You don't get to that the most stable flow of expenditures over time until you get things ramped up and on rotation. But once you get there, you end up with lower expenditures to the taxpayer and lower volatility in expenditures for planning purposes. I'm done.
Okay.
Questions?
Thank you.
Todd? Wow, there's really an echo. Do you guys hear an echo on your end?
Yeah.
Very much so.
Oh, Tim, could you hold on 1 second? I calculated something that I just had to share because I thought it was really cool. So remember that slope of the trend line I showed you at the beginning? And I said it was $24,000 a year it was going up. That gross, if you do the same trend line under the 7-year installment plan, it's $9,300 a year, 61% less. And if you factor in sales and look at the net, it's basically flat at $720 a year. So go ahead, Tim.
Sorry, I'm gonna have an echo because I had to use a different sound system. But if you can understand me, I guess one question I have is how quickly do you anticipate rolling over everything into all brand new equipment?
So once everything gets essentially started up on rotation. So it depends on the age of our current level of equipment on when it would go up for warranty. So if you look at that specific form, you'll see when it is. I don't know. I'd say it's roughly about 7 years based on the numbers, but it might be, I'd have to look at the spreadsheet. But certainly it depends on some of the new equipment we just bought won't be coming off warranty for 7 years, right? So, but that's, and the longest life of, it has to be within 7 years because it's a 7-year warranty plan. So halfway through the plan. if not sooner, based on the current age of the equipment, because some of the stuff is gonna have to be replaced this year, next year, the year after that, based on where its useful life is. Not everything is really old. There's plenty of stuff that's old, but not everything is brand new either, right? Not everything's brand new yet. Yeah.
So you'd be making a decision like, let's see, so if something runs out of warranty, we'd want to sell it to get the highest price, right? And you'd have to be balancing that at first with what's fallen apart out of warranty, then you keep going. You have to figure that out.
Correct.
Right.
That's right. It's an ongoing battle.
Right, right. And so for the first 7 years or so, you'd be kind of.
You're trying to get everything in sync, right? And not everything is gonna be replaced the same year,
Yeah.
right? This is this piece of equipment this year, this piece of equipment next year, this piece but by budgeting at that $200,000 level, absent any PPI adjustments based on the current cost estimates, you're covering all of those expenditures.
I was wondering, I think you started the timeline analysis from 2016 or something like that, is that right?
I originally started it from 2014 because that's as far as I could go back on what was posted on the website. I just thought that was far enough. Obviously, the beginning point can make a difference if something drastically happened in 2013 that I don't have it. But I took the last, and 2022 was a budgeted number, but everything was actual expenditures.
Okay.
In terms of the volatility and the average expenditures and things like that, and the trend book, yeah.
I'm just thinking, you know, like a lot of the equipment was, you know, there hadn't been much replaced. I can't remember the particulars since like 2000. So I wonder if you did the analysis from back then, if anything, would you anticipate that anything would change in your analysis?
If that's the case, I would expect our argument would be even stronger.
Mhm.
I mean, I can't crunch in the numbers, but I would expect it would be even. Right, you're gonna have lower levels of expenditures, maybe the repair costs are higher. And on the repair costs.
They go up over time, over that period.
Yeah.
I looked at that.
Yeah, it's certainly, and that could be even stronger than the correlation that we estimated at this stage.
Can I ask a question? I know it's not, so, right, you've got this pre-savings versus like basically financing.
Exactly.
And, right, and it looks appealing for the pre-savings program, but it is neither taking into account that if you start saving for a $250,000 piece of equipment today, in 5 years from now, it's not, yeah, exactly, nor inflation.
Excellent question, excellent question, right? A was an example, but B, you're totally right.
It's what you should be doing.
Right, you're putting in 50,000, you find out next year, oh crap, it's gonna be at least 20,000 more, well, then next year you put in a little bit more. Ultimately, you have to catch up in year 5, right, when you make the purchase. So you're still spending the same amount, and then what will happen is, then the amount you finance will have to grow, right? But if you're at favorable interest rates relative to discount rates, it will still be beneficial.
Yeah, so like at this point in time, right, it's like it would be a different situation if we went back to like the mid-70s where we had 20% interest rates, then there would be a valid argument to look at.
Could very much be.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And think about it in terms of, I don't know what borrowing rates are or whatnot, but municipalities tend to get more favorable rates, I'm sure, than me, maybe not you, but.
Todd, could I ask another question, please?
But you're exactly right, your point is well taken. Yes.
I'm just wondering, so you've based this on a 15-year model. I'm curious what happens if it were on a 10-year model. And I'm asking that with the realization that most of the costs and pressures that we're going to face are going to happen within the next 5 to 7 years. So I can understand if you stretch it out to a 15-year model, which is potentially we don't even have a clue what the situation will be, but we can have maybe a little bit of a better sense of what kind of pressures and situations the town might be on, say in 10 years. Does that change at all?
Well, the replacement schedule for that first 10 years will be identical to the replacement schedule that's already there, right? Because it's based on the existing complement and age of the existing equipment. Will the averages and stuff change? Yeah, of course, because different pieces of equipment are going out. I like the 15-year, partly because doing it, you sort of get kind of like 2 cycles on a 7-year installment, okay? But those numbers, if you want to just look at the first 10 years of it, you were still replacing equipment that needs to be replaced in those 10 years. That doesn't change whether we look at it at the 10-year horizon or the 15-year horizon. Bobby was able to go out to the 15-year horizon based on, and part of that, you know, was kind of basing things on a 10-year replacement, which is what we're trying or recommending that you move away from. But the replacements themselves will be identical in those first 2
Yeah, just one of the things that we'll have to take into consideration is what the budget pressure would be roughly in years 5 to 7, you know, based on this model. So it's just something we'll need to look at.
Other budget pressures?
No, the accumulated pressures from this plan at the front end when we're trying to aggressively replace all of the equipment. When and if we
$200,000 and it covers every.
When and if we reach a budgetary tipping point in any given year, that's the question. That's what we'll have to look at as a board.
Okay, I'm not sure I follow your question, but budgeting 200,000 a year will do it.
But when would we start getting money back from selling the car, the equipment that's out of warranty? That would take a number of years, right?
Not for stuff that is close to warranty expiration right now. Again, I don't have the detailed numbers right in front of
You would
me.
start with trucks that were purchased in 21.
Okay, so we still have some things that are under warranty now.
So the universe stuff we bought is under warranty.
We have three snowplows under warranty,
Okay.
so.
I did not mean to imply you haven't bought anything over the last 10 years. Maybe if you go to that prior period where there was a real gap, yes, but there are things currently under warranty.
Okay.
And
And they'd be feeding into it, into the pot.
they're fed right into that plan.
Okay.
So I don't have a printout of that other plan to show you explicitly.
Other questions for Todd? Really interesting.
Thanks again to the committee. They brought all the brain power. I just, you know, kind of was a note taker to get.
Great, thank you for taking notes, Todd. So anyway, this is great, and it'll be super good food for thought as we, you know,
Thank you.
move forward and figure this out. So it's really, really interesting.
I
And
appreciate your enthusiasm.
You've got a great speaking voice.
Oh, yeah. My students had class at 8 o'clock in the morning, and my students always say, how can you be so bouncy at 8 o'clock in the morning? And I say, talking about co-ops, you gotta get excited about that. It was a pleasure being on this.
thanks so much, Todd, and the committee, Bob. So, yeah. And you don't have to leave, Todd.
No, but I want to.
Okay, thanks so much. All right, folks, thanks for hanging on, and we'll move on. And I'll start with my supervisor's report, which is, I think, fairly brief. So broadband was brought up tonight, and broadband is something that we've talked about as a board as a priority for our ARPA funding, and there's more funding coming from the state, it looks like. So there's a big opportunity here, and the question is, we have to figure out how to do it. So Lee Hafley did survey for us and give us an updated coverage map for Caroline. So we have that information, and we're expecting the information from the state broadband survey very soon. I thought it was going to be in May, but it should be soon. And that reflects the state has really doubled down on rural, attacking the rural broadband problem with the Connect All program. They've dedicated $1 billion to that. So we are going to be following that. And I've been in conversations with other supervisors in town of Dryden and county planning on different approaches. And one of them that I find intriguing is the municipal broadband approach that Dryden is pursuing. There are different ways to do that. And I think in the near future, we may want to engage an engineering firm to help us. But I also think we need to kind of see what the state is doing and providing guidance on. So I spoke to Katie Borgella, who's the commissioner of planning, and she talked to the state and said, you know, it would be nice if the problems for rural New York for towns in rural New York are all the same. So it would be really helpful if the state would say, here's how you should approach it. And I think they are intrigued by the municipal broadband approach, which gives towns much more control and enhances the competitive environment for broadband, which we all know would be a good thing, right? You're not just dependent on Spectrum or
Frontier.
whatever you're left with. So so that's ongoing. Ecruce Road culvert, not a lot to say since the last meeting. I did speak to T.G. Miller, to Dondi the other day. He let me know that he was going to be contacting you, Bob, to talk about the project. It's just the other day, but he will be in touch. So, but they're finalizing the project design and obtaining Army Corps and DEC permits and developing bid documents. Historic Town Hall. I will steal some of Cal's thunder, the assistance of Cal. He's working with Steve Gibeon on developing the water management for this building. And looking at a plan for possibly evaluating regrading and almost certainly excavating around the foundation and repointing the stone foundation to protect it from water incursion. We did get I did get a bid the other day, estimate from the seamless gutter.
You did?
Person, so yeah, from Quality Seamless Gutter. So we have an estimate for half round metal gutters for this building.
Mark?
Yes.
Mark, I'll just mention that I've had a little experience with that company that I'd be happy to share with you later.
Okay, thanks so much. That's great. And TCOG Emergency Services Planning Subcommittee that I've been chairing for the last couple of years. We're continuing work on addressing something that we've also heard about, and I know Kathy is concerned about, addressing the personnel and fiscal strains on emergency services. And so we're discussing, it's only begun, but some counties, I think Chautauqua County, they've done countywide rapid response or fly car, develop those systems programs to provide rapid response to stabilize the situation before people can be gotten to the hospital. So it's a regional approach. It is important for coordinating funding, staffing, transports, and billing. So that discussion is just beginning, and so that Michael Stitley, the head of the Department of Emergency Services, and Justin Van are generously joining that committee and helping with the discussion. So that's interesting and encouraging. And then my last thing is I did my homework and submitted the MS4 report to Tompkins County Soil and Water for 2021. Bob provided me highway data, so that's done. That's my report. Any questions? Great, thank you. It's late, so I'll move on. And Jessie said that she didn't really have a report for tonight, right?
Right.
So, and we do not, highway report. We had some report tonight from highway, so.
Yeah, I'm not gonna take up too much time. First, I gotta say thank you to the committee. I actually kind of went into it thinking it wouldn't be as hard as it was. But for that group to sit down and kind of take on a job that is almost impossible to do today. Prices have changed drastically. Numbers are changing daily. I can't get a price today is good for maybe a week if I'm lucky. We finally just had to kind of pick a number and run with it. But again, I'd like to say thanks to everybody on that committee for your time. You do all the work. Yeah. I myself couldn't have done it without the help of everybody, so I appreciate it. Attended the 75th annual Superintendent Highway School this week. Learned a whole bunch of new stuff. Learned a bunch of, or I've been reminded of a bunch of old stuff, so was glad to be able to go with that, or go to that. We did get an emergency permit for Buffalo Road. We're actually waiting on a contractor right now to start that project. That project will be contracted out. So hopefully that'll get started here pretty quick. That permit is kind of a time sensitive permit, so we're working on that. Other than that, you guys are doing the day-to-day stuff, trying to keep everything together. We're gonna start a couple more projects here pretty quick.
It's not you, Bobby.
Other than that, I think that's about it.
Great.
I do have one more thing. I don't know if it's as cheery as everything else. I'm gonna try to say this kind of as nicely as I can.
That's good.
I'm trying. Lately, there's been a lot of extra phone calls and extra emails that have bypassed my desk. It's beyond frustrating. My door is open all the time for everybody. Everybody can call me. You can send me an email. I would love it if everybody would just stop down and have a conversation. Something can be solved before they have to go on this bypassed email or bypassed phone call. There are certain problems in town that are directly involved with my department. I would like the professional courtesy of not being skipped over. So it's about as nice as I can put it. That's what I got.
You're doing a good job.
Okay, thank you. County representative is Dan. Are you done, Bob?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So the county, Dan Klein can't join us tonight. And I thought Will might, but I guess she's not. Any updates from folks? All right.
Should I talk about the Tompkins County Transportation Council stuff now, or?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So, I'm on the Tompkins County Transportation Council now. And there's some money out there from the federal, from the bipartisan infrastructure law for Safe Streets and Roads grant program. And so I'm looking at that. I'm going to be taking 3 webinars this coming week on how to access some of those funds. And I sent Jessie the names of the webinars along with the name of this grant program. So that's it.
Great.
That's it. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That was brief.
Brief. I'm trying to be brief here. 9:25.
Great, thank you. All right. So I'll offer a resolution establishing the Town of Caroline Capital Equipment Planning Committee.
I'll second that.
Todd summarized the charge in his slide. I don't think I need to read this, so. Do I have a second?
I seconded it already.
Oh, you seconded it,
Yeah, I
okay.
seconded
Any further discussion? Okay, I think it'd probably be a good idea if we voted on it, so, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Great. Opposed? Great, thank you, and thanks to the committee, Bob. This is the, offer the resolution to authorize the agreement for expenditure of highway monies in 2022. This is the 284 agreement. And I summarized the form in the resolution. So it's 189,000 for general repairs on 70 miles of town roadways. Approximately 51,000 for permanent improvements commencing at Weaver Drive, Whippoorwill Lane, a distance of 1,704 feet. And 200,000 for set aside for permanent improvements on Buffalo Road, commencing a mile from Route 79. So any questions for Bob about this is the 2022 road improvements budget. The one question I had, Bob, was about the last one. Did I have that right? Is that for 250 feet of shoulder stabilization only for 200,000? Wow, that's a lot. That's what it costs.
Is it?
Well, I'm just asking. It is.
No,
seems-
it's
no,
not.
Yeah.
One rack weighs 8 tons and it's $72 a ton. And if you want to go and count how many racks we need, it's not a whole lot of money. We're gonna be cutting a few corners to try to get that done.
Okay.
That fall over to,
Any other thoughts before we? I did get a second, right?
If not, I'll second it.
Cal seconded that, Jesse, I think. So, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And I should have brought the form. It needs to be signed by 3 of us. So maybe we can do that after the meeting.
Okay.
Sign it up for, or we can, yeah, or soon. Great, thank you. Now I'll offer a resolution requesting a lower speed limit on Landon and Lounsbury roads. Whereas the town board received a petition signed by 37 residents and visitors requesting a lower speed limit, and whereas the town board recognizes petitioner's concern that this is a residential area with driveways, walkers, pets, and farm animals, therefore be it resolved, the Caroline Town Board hereby requests that the speed limit on these roads, Landon and Lounsbury, be reduced to 35 miles per hour.
I'll second.
Seconded by Tim.
Cal, do you want?
Yeah. So just on discussion on it, I would request that we delete a specific, because it's going to be determined by the state.
Right, I was going to explain that.
Okay.
Yeah, Jeff clarified that
Yeah.
this is in order that we can fill out a form to submit to the county,
Yeah.
who then submits it to the Department of Transportation. And they'll do a study, and then
Yeah.
even though we say we wanted it at 35, they'll say what it should be. Is
Right.
that what you're going to say?
That and a couple other things.
Okay,
Also, if we could get some signage, because the resolutions, talks about, residential, some signage for children
And farm equipment
And hidden driveways. And hidden driveways.
and hidden driveways.
And horses.
Yeah, there, I saw, yeah, I did put with driveways in the resolution.
On Lounsbury Road or?
Wasn't my request.
But we don't have any say on Lounsbury Road. Because that's a county road.
So you
But
can't
this-
put that in your petition to the state. Those signs that are being asked for, need to be asked for to the county highway, department, not the state.
Yeah, the signs are,
It's a separate thing.
it's a separate
Yeah.
thing.
I think we should, I mean, this is to trigger the speed limit study
Okay,
by the state. So I think if we want to pursue the other things that were mentioned, I was thinking those were things that Kate's been talking about. We can do that separately.
because it's a road safety issue. And also, I would like to see us. I mean, everybody says it's not just a speed limit sign, but it's also enforcement and what we can work with either the county or the state police to get some more presence out here for speed control if we have to. I mean, I know they're stretched thin, but sometimes I think we feel that there's just not, except for maybe the front of the elementary school, a little more presence here. For me, a bit of history was we used to have a resident who was a state trooper who would just kind of tell the dispatcher, no, I've been seeing a problem out in Caroline. He'd just go kind of, yeah. And he just, there was a presence, and I think people feel there is a lack of presence, and it's not within this resolution, but what we can do to get the state police and the sheriff to just.
So I would propose, I agree, it's not in this that's not in the business of this resolution. Is that what you meant?
Yes.
So.
But just the whole issue,
I was reflecting on our last meeting and writing a letter and stuff like that, which made me uncomfortable. Because, I think I would propose that instead that we invite the sheriff to a meeting to discuss it, because I think there's probably more to it than we know.
I'm sure, but yes, invite the sheriff, come talk to us.
Yeah.
And this is, we're seeing speeding and safety issues. And we feel there's a lack of enforcement presence, and how can we?
Yeah, find out what they say and their information. I think, great, so.
Yeah,
So this is, I mean, there are a lot of pieces that fit together here,
Right.
like the
And we
safe
gotta-
roads initiative would be. First, it'd be like, oh, now we get money to be able to make a plan and what's legal and what we can do in rural roads, versus a city. And then we have to apply again for the monies to do those things, so it's a number of years down the road. So this would be more immediate, as just like this resolution, but having the sheriff come in or the signage, which is just great. So,
we got to start somewhere.
yeah. So, I think we're all in agreement on that.
Cal, I will mention that I think it's probably fair to say that the troopers are fairly present along 79 as somebody who witnesses them on a regular basis. So I'm a little bit less concerned about that.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. But people still feel, I hear feedback as a whole that people don't feel that they're seeing a law enforcement presence. So, or we need to.
So we can have that.
How does the court do with that? That's how you know if it's being enforced. Because they have to come before before our judge, so you would know
Number of tickets and things
based
like
on that, the presence that's here. Right?
Right,
Logically.
that's right.
Well,
Great.
So.
Can I? Do we have further conversation about this particular resolution, or can I move the resolution? Given the time of the evening.
I'm ready to vote on the resolution. Are you okay voting on it as is, Cal?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So unless there's further board comment, I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. I'll offer a resolution to adopt the Town of Caroline video conferencing policy. And so I will read the resolution. Whereas remote attendance by public officers to public meetings was allowed under the COVID pandemic state of emergency, and whereas in April of 22, Governor Hochul signed legislation allowing towns' public bodies to have the option of continuing remote attendance by video conference if the town board adopts a law, local law, authorizing participation of public officers at public meetings by video conferences, and also adopts a policy establishing guidelines and conditions for such attendance. Therefore, be it resolved, the Caroline Town Board hereby adopts the following video conferencing policy to be used in conjunction with Town of Caroline Local Law 2 of 22, video conferencing local law. And the policy follows. And I'm not going to read the whole policy right now. Under the definitions, extraordinary circumstances are defined as events or factors that would preclude a member's physical attendance at the meeting, e.g. disability, illness, or significant health concerns requiring precautionary actions, caregiving responsibilities, other significant or unexpected factors or events, and events when a member is out of town for a short duration. I think that is the, sort of important, conditional aspect of the policy.
The conditions are not, that was Caroline developed, or that was not, that was the template, right?
That was, no, and actually, as I mentioned last time, I followed the general structure. Ours is similar to the town of Ithaca's.
Right.
So I followed that. Yeah. So. But I support this definition of extraordinary circumstances. I think it provides the appropriate, boundaries for and conditions for when somebody would do that. And I don't think,
I'd like to see in the policy some sort of cap on the number of meetings that are.
To me, that
Video conference.
Yeah, so for a particular member,
No, for.
a cap on what?
Just how many meetings have to be handled by video conference? 10% of the meetings a year, 15% of the meetings a year.
Okay, so clarification, I think there's some confusion here. So all the meetings will have in-person attendance of a quorum. Is that understood?
Yes.
Okay. So you're saying that 10 or 15% of the meetings would allow at least one member to attend remotely?
You're talking about per person,
Correct.
per member.
And what would the logic of this be? Were there serious medical circumstances, for example, that a member was confronted by?
Yeah, I think that lies in the face of the purpose of the resolution.
Would that be?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the principle, or why would we do that?
I think in-person personal attendance is important. I like very much the tenor of the resolution that, I'm going to miss, for me personally, I'm going to miss 2 meetings in the second half of the year if I couldn't video conference, but I would like to be able to video conference and be part of the discussion, the decisions. But I just feel that, ongoing need to not inability. I just think there should be, I value personal presence.
I think we all do.
Yeah. So I would like to see a cap on if it has to be used continually for unfortunate, or not, I don't even want to say unfortunate. I just value that personal presence and it not being.
What about putting a statement in that says, board members will try to attend in person, if at all possible?
I think they're, so,
Is that already in there?
yes.
I mean, if this, let's just put this on the table. If this is at all in reference to my meeting virtually, in keeping with the state law that's currently in place through tonight because of the COVID situation, I think it's extremely unfortunate if either I or any other member of any of the other town committees that we have are scapegoated for the conditions that are brought about by COVID. I can tell you that I personally have done my utmost to attend to town business, frankly, more than multiple times a day. And I'm very, very attentive. And I think if similar circumstances arose for any town board member regarding any medical emergency, or in this case, it's mentioned ill parents, ill children, etc. That's an extremely reasonable situation, and we can trust on our peers to do their work.
I just want to point out on D on the policy, H, virtual attendance should be used sparingly with the expectation that members will be physically present at meetings. Members must notify the chair and or staff support when they will not be present at a meeting or will need to attend using video conferencing. So it's explicit in the policy.
No, and I don't, Tim, I don't mean to cast any, I can't think. Thank you. I know you do your work, your homework, and put in your time. I'm just thinking ahead. I'm trying to think ahead to that there should be a cap on people expect personal. I don't know. I don't know if I have the words for it, or is it just a feeling?
Keep it a board discussion, please.
No.
Thank you.
I don't feel like. It's just it's a feeling, and I feel at a loss for words. I think of a similar example. If you will, if it was the same, maybe it's totally inappropriate or inaccurate. A township in the Tompkins County a few years ago had a highway superintendent that ran for highway superintendent, was elected and never came to work. Just kind of called in, told the crew, here's what you do. Collected his paycheck. That is not this situation.
That is not the situation at all.
No.
Yeah.
But for me, it is a little bit of the situation that somebody was elected and never, that highway superintendent should have. I don't know.
But that's not our highway superintendent, right?
No, it's not.
So that's not, like, I want to hear what you have to say. I value it. And this is making me sad. I mean, like, if this were you, if you were Tim, I don't think we'd be here having this conversation, if I could just be so bold. I don't think we would. I don't think anyone would be questioning this. I think people would be like, Cal, do whatever you need. And that makes me sad. I mean, like, and that is a separate issue, right? That is a separate issue from this law. But we're discussing like the law.
Yeah.
That is gonna, you know, has a particular. I mean, like, I say this with like, you know, respect, Tim, but like, this is a distraction. This whole issue of trust and community and Tim's whatever, like this is a distraction. And I just want to name that because this is like.
And
I
this
just
is a law
don't think.
going forward. That's what I'm looking at. This is a law going forward.
Right.
Tim staying home because of COVID is a different situation. And it's allowable by law. He came, you know, before COVID, he was here, he's done work, he's done a lot of work for this town, he's put in a lot of time.
Yep.
It's not seen.
So we don't need to be talking about Tim at all.
I know, this is a law going forward, it's separate.
And I'm trying to talk about personal presence.
Right.
Yes.
That if,
Right.
you know, and from what I heard from you, well, if it wasn't, I don't know, I
mean, we can't legislate, I guess my feeling is we can't legislate that, like, people are gonna have to do what they're comfortable with. At the end of the day, like, we are hired by the town and we are fired by the town. And
yes.
the town can decide what they want based on, you know, like how things go. And like, I don't know that any local law is gonna really change like how many meetings we attend, like, we're gonna do our best in a way that we feel is right. Like, you know, I don't know what else to do about that.
I feel like the local law emphasizes in-person attendance. It, you know, it's very strong in that way. And so this is for extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah.
So, Bob, did you want to say something? I do want to keep this a board discussion.
Well, this pertains to your whole discussion, it pertains to what Cal just said, and it's something that 3/4 of the highway superintendents deal with in New York State. Is that same question that Cal is stating. It's brought up all the time, I have no set schedule, or neither does any other highway superintendent, but we are expected to be in the office to fulfill other duties.
Okay,
And
so
before we go down a huge rabbit hole, you've already said, I don't know how many times, this isn't about Tim, this isn't about Tim. So let's not make it about Tim. And just bringing that up, it's not about Tim. So what Kale is trying to say is just, it doesn't matter if it's you, or if it's you, or if it's you, or if it's Kale. I think this is what Kale is trying to say, it's setting a precedence that you have to attend so many board meetings in person, you can't write out the year. Just as I can't write out the year sitting at home and just being on my computer and talking to my guys from a computer.
okay, thank you. So I want to steer it back.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So. Any other discussion on the board? So we have the resolution before us, and I would like to call for a vote. I'm in support. I'm in support of this resolution. I think it's very straightforward. A number of people who've spoken to us tonight have said that they think this makes sense, and you know, so I think it's a responsible thing to do, so I will offer it for vote.
Can we table it?
I'm not in favor of tabling it. We'll call for a vote. So, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, resolution passes. I will offer a resolution. Offer a resolution to adopt the Town of Caroline video conferencing local law. Do I have a second? We just adopted the policy.
Oh, we adopted the policy. I got it.
Yeah, now we're adopting the local law.
Policies on the wall. Okay. Second.
seconded by Kate. And the one change that I would like to make is to simplify the title to the Town of Caroline video conferencing local law, instead of a local law authorizing the town's public bodies to use video conferencing technology to participate in public meetings. So instead of that title, I'm proposing Town of Caroline video conferencing
Law.
local law.
Local.
Yeah.
Policy text, but do you have the law text? I have the policy text in front of me, but do you have the law text?
So the local law, I have the local law here. I don't have that there. It was linked in the agenda on the
It's the
website.
same as last week, right?
Yeah, it's the same as what we introduced last week.
Right. My only question about this is the whole voting and quorum, but honestly, to me, this is just like, there's so much time that's been spent on this. It seems truly absurd for something that just doesn't seem like a big deal to me, so I'm like reluctant to even mention it, but that is my only question.
Well, what is
waded through it.
About the voting and the quorum, like, it seems like there's a push to like not have the person be able to vote because it feels like it's a very like negatively valenced feeling around, we don't want this person to be able to do this.
Yeah.
But if you're
So-
gonna look at it from a positively, like, I would say like that person should be able to vote, because if we're deciding that like
Yeah.
participation is equivalent over video conferencing, why wouldn't that person be able to vote?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so to me, that's very inconsistent and I don't like it, but like I say, this whole thing just seems ridiculous and I don't wanna hold
The person
anything
can
up.
vote.
So
The person can vote.
You can vote,
You can vote.
Yes, you can vote.
you don't, if
but you are
you're,
not part of a quorum.
Right, because
but you
want-
don't contribute to quorum.
Right, so the number of the quorum is that we want the majority of the board to be in person, right? And so you've got an in-person quorum.
But if only
very
one
least.
person, like if we're not saying that like 4 out of 5 people are I mean, I guess it could happen.
It could happen, so that wouldn't work though, because there's no quorum. If there's just one person that shows up and everybody else is video conferencing, it doesn't count. It's
But
not-
if we're gonna really be clear about it, then let's say 2 people on one particular day have an extraordinary circumstance, then do we need a policy to decide like whose extraordinary circumstance is more extraordinary?
No, because the quorum is
But if,
It would be 3.
but okay, so 3 people would need to,
3 people, yes, 3 people who would schedule or.
but I'm saying in theory, like, I mean, I realize it just sounds ridiculous, but I guess I'm pointing out the flaws here, like,
Well, there's,
in theory, you could have 3 people who are home,
Yes.
who are video conferencing. And that would kind of like gum up the works, right?
That's correct.
well, it would be,
So-
there would be solutions. So one solution would be that one of those people, if they were willing, could advertise their location,
Oh, right, then it goes to open meetings law, you're saying after that.
and they would contribute to quorum in that case. The other possibility is under that kind of, that would be a truly extraordinary circumstance. If 3 couldn't make it, then you could cancel the meeting and say, we're gonna meet the next week.
Which we would have to do if 3 of us were sick at any given time anyway.
Right, I mean, I guess I just feel, I don't know why, compelled to just,
It's good to be clear about how it
It
works.
goes through different scenarios.
like, but, yeah, okay, great, let's vote.
Okay,
We vote.
yeah, we can vote. All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
opposed? Great, okay, thank you.
I don't disagree with
Oh, no, I'm just wondering.
I disagreed with the policy.
Okay,
I
perfect.
understand, I understand.
No,
Gotcha.
I'm inconsistent.
I love it. You keep me on my toes.
I will offer a resolution to continue the planning services with Community Planning and Environmental Associates. Whereas the town of Caroline contracted with, I'm going to say CP&EA for planning assistance to the town zoning commission, and whereas expenditures to CPA are approaching the contract maximum because of additional informational and outreach initiatives by the zoning commission, and whereas the town of Caroline board budgeted for additional planning assistance for the zoning initiative in the 2022 budget, therefore be it resolved. The Caroline Town Board hereby authorizes the zoning commission to continue to use services of CP&EA on an as-needed basis within the 2022 planning budget.
Second.
Seconded by Tim, and discussion. And this I reported in my supervisor's report last month, and so we need to formalize it with a resolution, I felt.
Are there any qualifications to as needed? So I guess my feeling is that they had been using, NAN services responsibly and appropriately. I don't feel a need to detail it further. I think they're mindful of being frugal or, not wasteful, so.
Any idea how much more?
I think it'll, I guess it'll.
Was it the budget? I can't remember.
I think it was 20,000.
Yeah, that's what I thought, something like that.
I think we budgeted 30,000 for the 2022 planning budget.
Oh, it was 30,000.
Yeah, that's
30,000.
Yeah. That's not what we expect for the remainder of services. I did ask for an estimate of that. I think it was in the range of 10 to 15. Could be something like that. Could be less. It'll just depend on.
Is that for a certain amount of time? Or
I think one of the expenses is for the informational meetings.
Right.
So that's something that wasn't in the original contract proposal.
Okay.
So those informational meetings add on additional cost, but I think they're really well worth it.
Like, when's the next time of reevaluation, I guess?
The next time of evaluation of this
Yeah.
would be at the end of this year. Be in our budget discussions probably earlier than the end of the year.
Right.
Pardon me?
Unless it runs out.
Unless it runs out, right. Great. Good questions. Any further discussion? I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. Is there anything I've forgotten that we were supposed to talk about? Great.
Paying the bills?
Oh, yeah. Gosh, yeah. Thanks, Tim. And approval of the minutes.
I thought you were asking about discussions.
Pardon me?
I thought you were asking about discussions.
Oh, yeah. So I will offer approval of the minutes of June 1. If anybody has, I provided Jesse some minor edits to the discussion, explaining the video conferencing introduction last time. But other than that, anything else for Jesse?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks as always. So good and timely, much approved. So the minutes of June 1 are hereby approved. offer a resolution to approve the vouchers for town bills in the amounts of $22,246.25 for the A fund, $31,019.17 for the DA fund, and $153.13 for the streetlight fund. Seconded by Cal. And any questions or further? All in favor of paying those bills? Aye. Opposed? Thanks so much. All right.
Jesse will be getting a bill for my registering for the highway school. So just a heads up.
Next month.
Yeah. But
That sounds like fun. I said, that sounds like fun.
it was,
Yeah.
I really, I find it totally fascinating.
Cool. All right, so it's late. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I will, oh, sorry,
Peter
Cal.
suggested a thing about privilege of the floor at the end of meetings, and I kind of like the idea of that.
So are you adding an agenda item?
I don't know what, or maybe just.
It's 10 o'clock.
I know, but maybe just a discussion thing we had a meeting tonight that encompassed a lot of stuff and a lot of emotion, passion, ideas. And we still got members of the public here. And
Tonight we had a 1 hour privilege of the floor.
Absolutely.
And I don't care if it's 2 hours.
So
I'll sit here till 1 a.m.
Okay.
But I thought that was a good, I mean, obviously if there's nobody here, but we still got members of the public here. And if anybody has anything they would like to say, I would like to hear it.
So my response to that is I did think about Pete's suggestion and thank you. I wish I had addressed it earlier, actually, because I did think about it. But the privilege of the floor is truly a privilege, and we have been very, we do that typically at the beginning of the meeting. If people have comments for us after the meeting, they can contact us easily. And I would encourage them to do that, write us or call us the next day. So I actually am not in favor of adding an additional privilege of the floor to the meeting. I do want to, I have been working on this at a steady and not totally successful pace since I became supervisor to run a meeting that's efficient for the board and fair to the board. And so I want to respect that. I want to hear from people. I'm happy to hear from people if they want to come to my office the next day and talk to me, and some people have. So that's, the town board meetings are working meetings of the town board. And so I don't think, I'm not in favor of adding privilege of the floor at the beginning, but thank you for the suggestion.
No, that's a fair answer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just something I tossed out there for consideration.
Sure.
I can see your points on it.
Yeah.
And you do run a good meeting. I've always said that.
Thank you,
I
Pete.
say a lot of stuff against you, but I think.
Did you want something from me, like a beer or something? Is that what you're-
I'll always accept beer, but don't quit for a fall. Say that.
Anyway, I appreciate that, but anyway, that's how I feel.
No, that's fair. I feel there's something about things being said in public versus.
I will also point out that I think a lot of people are here now, and when we adjourn, I think most of us will be quite happy to chat afterwards.
Oh, yeah, lingering is the best part.
So,
The thing is, you have to be present to do that.
Kathy? No, sorry. Great. Okay. So with that, I'll give it a try. I'll offer a resolution to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Catherine, and any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Adjourned at 10 o'clock sharp. Thanks, everybody.